Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Climbing Sycamores podcast, where we look at today's topics to get a better view of Christianity. I'm Annie Beege, and I'm joined by my friends Ben Sadler and Matt Harbach. Yo.
Hey, usually say something sarcastic at this time, Matt. You got nothing?
Something sarcastic.
Dang.
Ha ha ha. Got him.
Welcome.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
Annie sometimes wonders what she should talk about, and I said, Annie, just whatever you're angry about. Just tell us what you're angry about. That's usually a good start.
Totally.
So what are you angry about?
Well, yeah, so I was thinking, and in the moment I really wasn't, I wouldn't say angry, but so, you guys know I've got my tattoo, and I've now spent a total of 8 hours with my tattoo artist, who, by the way, is amazing. Like, I have a girl crush on her. She is just a fascinating woman. So if anybody needs a recommendation, hit me up and I'll.
That is a long time to spend with somebody.
And I probably have another 4 hours to go. So now I'm in close proximity with somebody for hours.
It looks good. Maybe I'll get one.
Yeah, I mean,
This is why I could never get a tattoo. Like, those 15 minutes when you're getting your hair cut are already way too uncomfortable for me. Or it's like I can kind of make conversation, but at the same time, like, you're busy and I kind of want to just leave. And you're talking 8 hours now.
And I'm thinking it's going to be 12, but all of a sudden done.
Yeah, see, that's why I could never do it.
I think it's great though, but here I'm getting a chance to know her, and
that's great.
because that's all you can do, right? Is chit chat. So our topics, run the gamut of, politics and COVID and music and art and TV and religion. And so, she knows that I'm a practicing Christian and whatnot. And she told me a story that it irritated me for her. So she's got this shop in Menominee Falls. She's on Main Street, so it's a main drag. She said in about 2019, so let me start by saying her shop is like immaculately decorated. Like, the aesthetic is just so cool. She's a lover of nature, and so she's got like a lot of taxidermied pieces. She's got like framed moths, and like she's got one of those, like, I don't know what they're called, but like the bull skull that you might see in Texas. You know what I'm talking about? She's got one of those mounted. She's got like a pheasant mounted.
Is she a hunter or just likes nature?
She's not, but she likes nature, and I think she draws nature, and she's creative with nature, and like, so I think she appreciates it. So she's also got a giant ram like bust, and it's huge, and it's in the front of the shop, and you can see it when you're walking by from the window. So in 2019, she gets a Facebook message from presumably a Christian woman who says, "Do you know that a ram is the sign of the devil? Are you worshiping the devil in there?"
Just doing her civic duty. We salute you, Facebook woman.
Well,
if I would have been there, I would have said the same thing.
This is my thing. So I guess and so she said that she took some time to collect herself, and then, wrote back like, "Thank you for your interest in the shop." Like, blah, 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 blah.
Would you like a tattoo?
Right. And so my gripe about this is, we always talk about how we should, work to evangelize, and like, what's the appropriate way to do that? What's the appropriate way to care about somebody's eternity and their souls and their, whatever. To me, I think this woman, I don't know, but I think this Facebook woman might have been trying to evangelize or something. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, where she's trying to call her out on, I'm like, no, lady, you're going about this the wrong way. Like, go sit in her shop, get a tattoo, and talk to her about it.
Right.
Go into her shop and say, "Hey, I'm looking at the decor from out there. Can I come in and just take a look around?" And ask her about it. Don't make these wild assumptions that because she's got this beautiful taxidermied ram in her shop that she's a Satan worshiper.
Isn't it technically a goat? A goat is like the devil thing when he separates the sheep from the goats. That's the symbolism, is he separates the sheep from the goats. So sheep are actually good, and rams are just male sheep. So that would be the place to start. It's not rams, it's goats.
Well, whatever. So, but the point is, it was more about the method that this woman chose, this crusade she wanted to go on.
Sure.
When I just don't think, and I think we've talked about this type of stuff before, like what is the appropriate way to talk to people about Jesus? Right. Is it standing on the street corner with your megaphone? And to me, it's the same thing with this woman is like, come into the shop, ask her about it. Like if you have such a problem, don't just make assumptions that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Come get a tattoo. You're going to have plenty of time to talk to her, And so it's offensive to me that people are doing this type of thing in the name of what I'm guessing was a way for her to talk about Jesus and evangelize. And, I don't understand it.
We watched Edward Scissorhands the other day, and there's a caricature of that, this woman running through the scenes, calling him from the devil because he's got scissors on his hands. He's all black and all things like. It reminds me of how Martin Luther 500 years ago approached change or evangelism and topics like these. Like, first of all, I never would have made that connection. I mean, if we were talking about some of this last week on the stuff that's a lot more in your face at the Grammys, that like wearing horns, like, okay, you're really trying to be on the nose there. And then we also talked about how you really first need to establish, like, are you on the same playing field? Like, do you both agree that the Bible is scripture? And if that's true, then you can that's talk
where
about.
I was going to start too.
But the other thing is, kind of what you were talking about when it comes to time, like spend some time trying to figure out what's going on. Martin Luther 500 years ago, it was pretty interesting. He was on a crusade, you could say, for the purity of the gospel, and he saw a lot of abuses in the Catholic Church, praying to saints instead of Jesus, or Mary instead of Jesus, or in addition to, and then some of the other practices of buying indulgences to get out of purgatory. And in the beginning, he kept some of those parts in his liturgy, and he slowly got rid of some of these parts of the worship service, even though there was some things that were still problems. And just because he wasn't ready to jar people into obedience. And so he slowly changed things over and over again. And then there was another guy, Karlstadt, who threw out anything that seemed to be connected to Catholicism. So he got rid of the robe and wore other things, got rid of any kind of liturgy, got rid of all these different things right away, and kind of like gave people whiplash. And I've seen that in Latin America when I did work in different places. Once people kind of see some of the abuses in kind of the cult-ish of the Roman Catholic Church in Latin America, I've seen like maybe hyper Pentecostals who run into a Catholic home without saying things and tearing Virgin Mary statues off the wall and being very aggressive without the conversation. And it's not really up to us to go to even Jesus didn't even do that. So you kind of, what we say here a lot at Victory is meet people where they're at, and don't make assumptions. But how are you going to meet people where they're at? So that's too bad. And if you make a bunch of assumptions, then you don't have any kind of further conversation with this
right. And
this
she
great
was
woman,
completely turned off. Like she's like, this is ridiculous. Like why, why is this happening? And I think, so often we talk about evangelizing and what that looks like and what's appropriate and what is most effective.
Play the long game.
Exactly. It's a quality, and we can only touch so many people's lives. And maybe you think you're touching many lives when you're standing on your street corner with your megaphone, or you're reaching out randomly to people who have certain decor, but it's not like legitimate. Like people don't take that seriously. And so, I think that yes, our job, well, and it's not even a job, but we should want people to have the hope that we have in Jesus, and that's great. But I think going about it the wrong way.
So as you were talking to her, I mean, is she totally turned off to any kind of Christianity, or was she open to things, or how did you approach it differently than
Well,
yelling
no,
about
she
her
asked me a
RAM?
couple questions, and I just responded, and she's like, maybe one day I'll find God. I don't know,
Yeah.
and she's fascinating, and
Yeah.
I enjoy talking to her, and yeah, so
Yeah, I think when you're dealing with people in the arts, man, that is such an open door to the greatest artist. Just to appreciate nature, like look at all the symmetry, look at all the beauty, look at all the design, look at all the intentionality, and just enjoy it with the person. And then one day, hopefully, you can get back to the designer. So yeah, that's too bad. And the problem is, man, that interaction probably was very short, left a long impact, and there's no ongoing context or conversation.
yeah. So like I said, Erin, she responded. She says, oh, thanks for your interest in the shop, that type of thing. And then the woman just replied with a thumbs up.
Yeah.
It's
And
like,
over.
so what were you doing? What did you think you just did there? Like, you thought you did something
Yeah.
by bringing this up? Like, you don't even make sense. If your conscience is really that offended by the decor or whatever, it would be worth it, I think, to ask Sam Smith, like, what was your intention here? Instead of just saying, like, well, you're worshiping the devil. Like,
Yeah. What are you trying to do?
What's going on here? So I don't know. I think just find out about people, talk to people, take an interest in them. Everybody's got a story. Everybody's got their own experiences and their own, viewpoints. And it's fascinating to listen to people and hear what they have to say. So build relationships with people.
That's why, again, I love missionaries, because they have no leverage. Here in the States, we have, at least maybe we did, some kind of cultural leverage where people felt some kind of obligation to maybe go to a Christian church from their grandma or something. And so you had some kind of clout maybe at one time. When you go in some foreign mission fields, like, they have no leverage whatsoever. And it is a long one-by-one conversation. And so a lot of times in our mission fields, like true conversions, like, you've been working there for 3 years and you have a church of 10 people, and because that's what it takes. Lots of tattoos and lots of time sitting and talking. And sometimes we get an artificial understanding of real evangelism when we have lots of Christians that are kind of shuffling around to different churches. But that kind of evangelism that takes days, hours, years on one-on-one is really evangelism.
And I wouldn't even call it that. Like, I'm literally just
Friendship.
talking to you.
Right.
Yes. And we're exchanging ideas and we're exchanging, life stories and viewpoints and experiences. And so I don't think, I don't know. And I think anybody can do it, no matter how. Everybody has a sphere of influence, no matter how big, whether it's within your own family or a coworker, or, you don't have to be everywhere all the time, but take care of the relationships that you have.
But you're naturally curious. I think that's a big.
I'm fascinated with people.
I think that is a big issue. Some people are so black and white. Sometimes I envy them because they have these rules that make life simple for them. This is right, this is wrong, and I'm going to let you know, even if I don't care who I offend, that this is right, this is wrong, and they just don't have any room for gray or curiosity. And so you say it's easy, but I think for some people that's very hard, to hold their tongue and to not say anything and not accuse, but just withhold judgment for a while until you get the full story. That's not easy to everybody. What do you think, Matt?
Agree. I was gonna say I was gonna agree with what you said about assumptions, and people need to understand that it's not a Christian nation anymore.
Sure.
You're just not working with people who have even a background of Christianity.
Right.
There's just you can't say that's Satan. I mean, people know, I guess, what Satan is, but that doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah, I mean, are you really going to go inside a mosque in the Middle East and start tearing things off the wall, or yelling at them that you need to this is their whole culture. This is their whole community. This is their whole life. And what is it actually going to take to maybe walk with them long enough to have them be interested in Jesus? Just like it would be for us. Like if somebody came in, if you turn the tables and somebody would come into our lives and start saying we're all wrong about Christianity and, they think Islam or Hinduism or something is the truth, that would take a long time for me to be convinced of that. It would take a lot of conversations. It couldn't be just coming and yelling at me. I would kind of roll my eyes.
Well, and I feel like a lot of Christians have kind of this mentality of this is the way it should be, either because, when we talk about like maybe a family structure or, and so they have this, they're trying to mold the world into something that it should be instead of saying, this is the world. How do we work in it?
Sure.
And so I think you will not find success if you say, well, this is people should go to church every Sunday. Yeah. They should go to church every Sunday. They should be here physically every Sunday. Yeah. Well, that's just not the way it is. And so you can either continue to bang your head against the wall and say people should do this, or you can go and find ways to get to the people. It's just that's just one example, but the way it should be versus the way it is.
Right. And those things might be two different conversations too of, again, are we talking to Christians where you can say, after you have that foundation of, all right, if you're not going to come to worship every week, what are you doing? But we at least have this agreement that worshiping God is our whole life now as a Christian. That's everything. If they're not a Christian, you can't start with any of that. You have to start with Jesus. So yeah, you really mess up when you go assuming demanding somebody follow Christian values that's not a Christian. It's just
because that's how it should be in their minds,
right. Yeah.
And maybe we could argue like, yes, we believe that Christianity is the way to go and Jesus is the way. And we believe that. And we could say, yes, it would be great if everybody lived that way, but it's not the reality of the situation.
I think a lot of times it's either a black and white personality where it's like, I'm just going to tell you, I don't care how much I offend you and I don't care what it does, but I have to get this out, like black and white personality. Also, I think it can be out of fear, almost, fear of God, or just you feel like you have to say all these things or you're not being faithful. And I've felt that in myself too, and I've seen it in other people where, especially if you're kind of a perfectionist, or again, things are very clear for you in your head, and you feel like to keep your conscience clear, you have to go around fixing everybody's stuff, and you see so many things that are wrong in the world, and so it just takes a lot to realize like you're not the Savior, and then to look at examples of the apostles. I think it's really great. In the book of Acts, we have a bunch of sermons that were preached to different groups of people. And when Peter is preaching to Jews, he says, all right, we all agree that the Hebrew scriptures are true. Now, they talked in the Hebrew scriptures about a Messiah. I'm going to tell you who that is. And we all agree on that. And then when Paul preached in Athens, he says, all right, I see there's lots of gods here. You have all these different gods you're worshiping. And you even have a statue to an unknown God. That God that you don't know, that's what I'm going to tell you. That's what I'm going to tell you about. So finding that point of contact and similarity and something that you agree on, at the end of the day, even with secular people, you're going to agree on a basic conscience, right and wrong, and this has to come from somewhere. But if they're secular, you can't agree on all the things that are in Scripture. You have to start being people where they're at. Yeah. Well, that's too bad. Like I said, maybe I need to get a tattoo just so I can meet this lady.
Oh, she's great. Maybe I can get her to come to church. And
I'm not the kind of guy that could pull off a tattoo. I don't think, Matt.
Nope.
No. Yeah.
You don't have enough flavor about you.
No, nothing. Right.
I'm good on that topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the debate. We're talking about prayer coming up in an upcoming sermon series. So I'm thinking about prayer right now, and the age-old debate of, do you do off the cuff, sometimes called excorde prayers? Is that how you have to pray? Is that the best way to pray? Or can you pray rote prayers? Are those better or worse? And rote prayers, like the Lord's Prayer or a common table prayer. Sometimes a lot of Lutherans will pray, "Come, Lord Jesus," before a meal. Do you guys have any when it comes to prayer? Do you feel better or worse or strange or not strange saying one or the other? An excorde off the cuff prayer, or do you like if there's a written prayer that someone else wrote that you can pray in general?
That's a good question. I think obviously a prayer is probably more personal if you're the one that wrote it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To me, I often find myself praying for the same things.
Okay.
So, am I using the same prayer, kinda?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, sometimes, if you decide you're just gonna pray, like your mind can just wander endlessly.
Mm-hmm.
With which one? Either one, or
if you're just making it up as you go.
Oh, okay, sure. You
Um,
can go on and on.
yeah, and then you just start. I found myself drifting and just thinking about other stuff, and it's like, what am I doing? So, yeah, I guess those are my thoughts on the matter.
What do you think in worship? Do you, when a pastor prays a written prayer versus an off-the-cuff prayer, do you think it matters?
That's tough because there's an audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough. Pastors do this thing where they don't know how to land the plane.
Yeah. We were saying that. We were just talking about that. Like, here we go, circling around one more time. Almost. No, we're going to take it back off again.
See, I was just talking to Michael about this because when he does videos, he wants to use the teleprompter and get it right, because there's like all these like kind of innate rhetorical things that we all know to make our words sound like they're more prepared or like more professional. And, and so your brain like picks up on those things, and then you assume when the person starts slowing down and says, like takes a breath, you're like, okay, they're coming, and then just keeps going.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, is the audience really listening to what they're saying, or are they just kind of subconsciously monitoring your cadence to try to figure out when it's going to be done?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's good. What do you think, Annie?
I see the benefit to both. I think that particularly if you just don't have the words, just go to the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Kind of covers everything, right?
Yeah.
You just don't have the words. Yeah. I pray personally, and I obviously just talk kind of. I am uncomfortable praying on the fly publicly. Mm-hmm. We do sometimes prayer circles, and we pray for the person next to us or whatever. And it's just, I get really like, and I'll be like, okay, well, I think I'm done now in Jesus' name, amen. That's me landing the plane. It's a crash landing, but it's a landing nonetheless. Yeah, pretty much. So I see the value to both.
Yeah.
At the same time, it is encouraging just for other people to hear, though, too.
If you're not part of the kind of Christian world, there is a debate amongst Christians, like maybe more formal Christians, who say, you're being too arrogant if it's all about you doing your own kind of prayer. You're not honoring the history of the church and the wisdom of the church. And then there's another group that's saying you're not being real enough if you're not off the cuff, and any kind of rote prayer is a stale prayer, and it's not deep enough, and it's not personal enough, and it's not a personal relationship with Jesus. I think what you just said, Annie. Like, if you don't know what to say, the Lord's Prayer covers it. For me, I guess the reason I bring this up is I want people, especially new Christians, to see some value in, when you don't know where to start, things like the Lord's Prayer or the Psalms can be like an agenda. If you think about, like, all right, we're going to have a meeting today. What are we going to talk about? What's the agenda? And I think because what you said, when we pray off the cuff, sometimes we just go back to the same things. It can be selfish or self-centered or not not really getting into and so the Psalms and the Lord's Prayer can get us to go places we wouldn't normally go. And then I think if you use it as an agenda, then you're free to kind of riff like a jazz musician off some of these lines, but you at least know somewhere to start, and you have kind of a home base. So I know lots of Christians or lifelong Christians say, "Man, I wish I prayed more." And then of course people who just start saying, "I don't even know where to begin." Mm-hmm. My thing, I've just been doing a lot more of it lately, is when I get up and walk the dog in the morning, and it's real early, it's real dark, I can say it out loud. I use the Lord's Prayer as the outline, and I know I'm speaking to God the Father. You're holy, God. I pray that you're gonna make your name holy today. Let your kingdom come. So rule in my life today. Let it all happen. Let your will be done. And sometimes you just linger on one of these things, like, hey, everything broke down last week. Car broke down. Extra bills came in. More camps. Give us today our daily bread. Give us what we need to get through today, God. So I just want to encourage people, I think, to use everything that's available to them to keep their prayer life rich and not let it get stale. And stale doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be all off the cuff. You don't have to do this on your own. Use the history of the church, but also make it your own. And I think the Psalms. I am just loving the Psalms lately. Especially we've talked. I'm teaching this class on trauma, and I'm so thankful that many people are now saying, "Hey, Pastor, let's talk," or "Hey, there's more to my life now. We need to talk." And the Psalms give so much room to say, "Why, God? Why did you let this happen? Why did you let me suffer? Why did you let me go through this trauma?" They also give you a reason to say, "God, do something about this. Bring this person to justice. Make this stop." They also say, "God, I don't know what's going to happen now. I'm a little scared, but I know you're going to bring this to resolve." And then they give you the capacity to praise, like, "All right, God, I'm going to praise you. This is a good thing. You're going to bring this all." So, yeah. So I just want to encourage people to pray. Anything else you guys thinking on prayer?
One other thing too. I mean, I think even with the Lord's Prayer and stuff, because some of these there's just so committed to memory that you have to be intentional about it, so that you're not just saying it. We say it every Sunday at church, and it's easy to just recite. Can I have a
confession?
Yeah.
All right. Now, last night we had our volunteers thing here, and then we hung out a little bit afterwards, and some people are talking about, Ben, you look a lot more nervous when you're leading worship than when you're preaching. And I was like, do you have a tally back there of how many mistakes I make? And I do you, or Matt, do you have a tally going, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We usually have a weekly bet. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. And I don't know if it was last week or the week, it must have been the week before, because it was the week I wasn't preaching. I knew there was a bunch of announcements that were coming up.
So you were thinking about the announcements?
Yeah, and I was like,
praying?
"Oh man, I don't think I know all of the things I'm supposed to be saying." And then I switched a bunch of words in the Lord's Prayer, and then I sat down, and Bill's like, "The Lord's Prayer is written up on the board. You don't have to." And he just gave me a little jab, and I was like, "Yeah, that's what I get for letting my mind wander and worry about what's coming up next." So.
We noticed.
But I think it's the same with the creeds too,
right.
that we do every week.
Right.
I don't pay attention to those. I like, because I've got someone who's got to flip the video for the live stream.
Yeah.
I've got someone who's got to have the slide on the right time.
Yeah.
And if it's not on the right time, then there's this big awkward pause when it gets to the end of that page,
Yeah.
And then when you're the sound person, you got to fade in the crowd mics.
Yeah.
So you can hear everybody. And so whenever those prayers or those creeds start, I just like, it's just another thing to do. So I'm like, my eyes are scanning.
Yeah, but you could probably recite them while doing the other 3 or 4 things you have to do.
I say them.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that's what I'm saying, because they're just so there that it's like you have to be very careful. Or
Sure.
I do too.
Sure.
And I didn't grow up learning this either.
Yeah.
So I think about my kids having to memorize all of these things at a young age, and just to really think, what are we saying here?
Right.
Every week.
And I think that's really important we try. to always introduce the creed to kind of give some people something to think about while they're saying it. But I will always, maybe there'll be a day when we don't say them in our church, but I will always be an advocate for saying some of these rote things because of all the experience I've had with people with memory loss. That every time I visited somebody with Alzheimer's or something like that, or just dementia, I can always say the Lord's Prayer with them. And so you might think they're not, you're going through the motions, but it's still creating these deep pathways in your brain and your heart that I think connect deep to your soul. That even if you don't always know what you're saying in the moment, you're reinforcing, like the Pledge of Allegiance. You're reinforcing something that you want deep down inside. So yeah, even if you don't always engage deeply, it's worth it being in your brain. So that's all I have to say about that. I want to hear what you have to say. You just brought up a broad topic and sounds juicy. Sounds
juicy. Well, yesterday was Valentine's Day, and I had heard a few days on the radio, like one of the stations was like, they were doing something special or whatever different for Valentine's Day, but then they were like playing like an anti-Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah.
They were like, Valentine's Day, more like manipulative, Hallmark, corporate, whatever day. And it was like, oh, someone's bitter. Okay. And then yesterday we had chapel at school. And the speaker gets up and says, hello, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. And there's just like a moment of silence, and then there's just boo. Everybody is
I love it.
And I was just sitting there, and I was like, why is everyone like, I remember being like really little, and on Valentine's Day, you got free candy at school.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And I feel like, I don't actually know if we did anything in high school. I've always associated with free candy.
Yeah.
So it's always been like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And now now it seems like, obviously, yes, of course it's a corporate holiday. Of course it's a big scam.
Yeah.
To get people to go out, buy overpriced stuff, and everything is pink and red and all that. And like, that's pretty obvious. But I kind of thought about, because we talked about Christmas.
Yeah.
And how Christmas is not always what we want it to be every year. And so it's a bittersweet holiday.
Right.
And people can be sad around Christmas, and there's kind of something that still brings people together. And Valentine's Day, it's like, either you love Valentine's Day because you have a Valentine that day and you guys go out and you do something special, or you hate it and it's just there to make you feel lonely and sad, and it's there to rip all your money off. Like, why is it so extreme for people?
I appreciate that you can find a little happy medium. Like, hey, I got chocolate. I don't. What's wrong
And I
with
think
that?
you can have a significant other and still hate it, like myself. Like,
So why do you hate it?
I think it's dumb. I think it's corporate. I think it's like there's too much pressure. Like, people have enough going on. Why do we have to do this now?
And you don't have. That's my point. Is I don't think you have to.
Good.
So just don't. But then it got people making a big stink about it.
I knew one of my professors, he made all of us feel bad because the guy was just such a romantic. Like, the whole week leading up to Valentine, it was like a rose for each day. He wrote like a poem each day for his wife. He made this like Valentine's month. And I think it made her feel amazing, like that she was that.
That sounds clingy to me. I don't like that. It's too much.
They were married, Annie.
It's clingy.
There's no such a thing as clingy when you're married.
Yes,
you're
there
supposed
is.
to cling. That's
Hi, Dave.
Oh, that's so funny.
Man, I feel bad for Dave.
Yeah, me too. Sorry, Dave.
This is the first year our kids really got into it because of significant others, and that's kind of funny to
Who
watch.
else? Spill that tea, Ben.
There's
Jonah,
stuff
he's
out there.
too young. Do I need to have a talk to him?
There's stuff going on out there. It's amazing how motivating it can be for young people, is what I was going to say, without spilling all the tea on this It's a large viewing or listen. All the people who listen to this. So that's kind of fun to watch. How motivating it can be. But yeah, it's a. I ended up just doing flowers this year for Emily because I was wandering around the store again, like usual. Like, I need a manual. I need
typical husband. Am I
typical.
Jeez.
Am I right? Yeah. So that the pressure to get another thing wrong and right is not cool. But
Yeah.
so you're anti. You were yelling boo. Were you at Wisco yelling boo?
No, I probably was like in the back, starting the whole,
She was the loudest one.
inciting the riot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But does that say something about our young people? I mean, my kids are not.
Do they still have hope? Is that it? Like
Yeah.
they
Well, no, I'm
just
wondering. Like, do they?
haven't
I mean,
just had the bitterness of like lost love smack them in the face.
or do they not care? Or I don't know. You know.
I think it's nice. I think, Matt, that you don't have to take a hard side, and it is funny how people have to take a hard side on so many
You
things.
just don't. Like I let me think. So I've dated a couple people a long time ago, and I think on one occasion it lined up where I was dating somebody on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And we did some stuff, and then I had to go to, I worked a job that was a restaurant, so it was more busy on Valentine's, so I had to go to work. And I remember she got all upset about that and was like, I don't know what you want me to do. I have a job, you know?
It's
And
just
so
another day.
I mean, I did roll my eyes at that, I'm sure. I think the pressure is stupid, but at the same time, like, okay, so go get the free get the clearance rack chocolate on the 16th or whatever, you know? Like,
I know a pastor who was very anti. Like, he would make sure everyone knew he was anti, and I think it's because of, isn't it celebrating like around the time of a massacre? I think there's some history that it was on a certain date, and
that stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, he was very vocal about it. So
I don't know. It's a good excuse for church to be like, but Jesus was the ultimate love, you know?
it was
So-
interesting, having this volunteer supper thing benefit last night on Valentine's Day. People were able to make it, so they were looking for something else to do beside the typical.
And it was really fun.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
super fun. I
went
was
off
really
pretty
glad we
well.
could do that. So we had a good time.
So you're just keep it as it is, use it if you want it, right? Is that what you're saying, Matt?
Yeah, obviously I know it's a big pressure thing, and it is pretty stupid just objectively, but I just like I feel like people just let their bitterness out on that day. Well, it's stupid. It's just Hallmark trying to sell.
Well,
It's
it's
like,
because
well, some people like it.
they don't have what they want.
Yeah,
And that's why
but just
they're
be a
mad
little
about
more
it.
subtle about
Well-
it. Like, we know you're bitter and lonely, but please try to hide it. It'll bring us all down here.
How about Galentine's Day? Do you care about that?
I don't celebrate it, but I love that. Like,
Yeah,
I
there you
think
go.
that's great.
Yeah, I think doesn't that start because of Parks and Rec, the TV show?
Or
Yeah,
or
Amy
was
Poehler.
it Parks and Rec?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that she.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So
Which I think is great.
yeah, there you go. So fight the man right there, Galentine's Day.
Just being with your friends,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that really what it's about? Loving people.
No,
right?
no. See, that to me is also bad. Just you either are doing the thing, like you either got to go all out, the hearts, the candy, everything, or just chill out about it. Because otherwise, then it just seems really desperate. Then you're like, well, we don't need men, we have each other.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I
like
see.
just play it cool. You know.
If you're gonna go big though, I say good chocolate. If you're gonna get chocolate, don't get the cheap chocolate from Walmart. Go get a good chocolate bar. That's what I say.
Don't anything that when they put things in boxes.
Yeah.
That's always a ripoff. It's never even good.
Yeah.
Just find yourself a trusted brand and just buy that all year. Don't worry about the one day. It's a
Yeah.
waste of your money.
That's good.
Life advice.
There you go.
I know.
Solved all the problems.
That's what I do.
All right. Peace.
Oh, don't forget, March 3rd. We're transitioning over. That's the big day, March 3rd. Transitioning our podcast to a different platform. Not going to be paired with the Victory Podcast. You will have to search Climbing Sycamores by name. Thank you.
If you'd like to get a hold of us here at the Climbing Sycamores podcast, feel free to email bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. If you like today's intro music, it's been brought to you by Andrew Lynch's song, My Name. Hello.